Hello, I'm Karen Rawls, Social Investment Manager at Chevron. Welcome to the Chevron FAB STEM Fellowship podcast. Chevron is proud to support the Chevron FAB STEM Fellowship. This one-year discovery program is designed for outstanding educators to learn, create, promote innovative and inclusive programs that teach STEM using digital fabrication. Participants in the fellowship program receive a $10,000 stipend to travel to a Chevron Fab Lab and another worldwide lab of their choice. This initiative is part of Chevron's partnership with the Fab Foundation, which aims to foster innovation, inclusivity in STEM education, and community empowerment. Over the years, Chevron and the Fab Foundation have collaborated on numerous initiatives to bring cutting-edge STEM education to underserved communities. We provide resources, training, and support educators, students, and communities at large. So join me in celebrating the achievements of the past Chevron FAB STEM Fellows who have demonstrated excellence in education and innovations. These fellows have made significant contributions to their communities and inspired the next generation of innovators. To learn more about the Chevron FAB Fellowships, please visit the fabfoundation.org website.
Hi, my name is Julie Sundar. I am a manager at the IoT Lab in Paramaribo, Suriname. The IoT Lab is the first and only Internet of Things lab in the Caribbean. I am also chair of CODES Foundation, which is an organization focused on educating women in innovation and ICT based in Paramaribo, Suriname. But I was actually born in Georgetown, Guyana. I have been selected as one of the fellows for the Chevron FAB STEM Fellowship 2024. And one of the requirements was to select one lab in the United States and one outside. And I have selected AMRoC, and I've been here for the past 3 days. And I'm excited to share what I've learned and the experiences I have received with these amazing people at AMRoC. And I'll hand it over to Ms. Terri.
My name is Terri Willingham, and I am the Executive Director for the Foundation for Community-Driven Innovation that runs AMRoC Fab Lab and does a whole bunch of other capacity building programs. And we were applied to be a Chevron FAB Fellowship site host. We were excited to be selected by you, and we've had a great time having you here. And we're excited to talk about the things we've learned from you and some of the things that we hope that we could do together.
I'm Brandy Jackson. I am the Chief Education Officer at Scoutwire. We are a lesson design and delivery company that partners with Fab Labs really around the U.S., but our home-based lab is here at AMRoC, the Advanced Manufacturing Robotics Center. Our goal is really to help organizations that are doing awesome things in STEM, like both of your organizations, work together, create educational resources that can be shared with other people so that what we're doing is just more sustainable and growing. So I'm really excited to see how we can all work together, not only across these days while you're here, but into the future so that other people see how important it is to just work together with your peers.
Right now, I'm actually wearing two hats, toggling between manager at IoT Lab and being chair of CODES Foundation. So the IoT Lab actually facilitates our training program. Mr. Boomsma is leading the IoT Lab, and he would mention that CODES take up 80% of the space. The IoT Lab stands for Internet of Things Lab. It's basically building these connected devices that you've heard of that connects to the internet. So hardware, integrated software devices that are connected to the internet. We started the IoT Lab in January 2019, right before we actually started Fab Academy 2019. We're able to be certified to teach students via our sponsored training program because we graduated Fab Academy 2019. So yeah, basically the IoT Lab facilitates our training program and also training programs for entrepreneurship. Yes, so CODES Foundation runs many training programs from for kids from the age of 8 all the way to women of age 50. Our main focus was to cater for just women, but because there's a lot of demand from young boys to join our program, we have an 80-20% split. Our goal is to help these women become aware that tech is not just for men, provide them with the resources and the funding necessary to complete this program within the required time, and to help them technically develop skills and then ensure that they get a job after they've completed the program with us. And we've been running training programs since 2019, 2020 till now. And we're super excited to share all of our success story, especially the fact that I did not go to the university or have a degree, and we're able to develop this sector, which is our main goal in our country.
That's great. I know. I actually was kind of laughing because I thought when you were coughing, it was because Scoutwire takes up a big percentage of AMRoC Fab Lab too. But that brings us to this intersection part of the conversation, right? None of us can do this by ourselves, and what you bring to IoT Lab in Suriname through Codettes, and what Brandy brings through Scoutwire to AMRoC Fab Lab here in Tampa, it is really powerful, and it creates opportunities to do more than we can do by ourselves. And I think that part is really, really interesting. There's also, we talked since you've been here, that there's a lot of parallels between our organizations. IoT Lab came up in 2018, I believe. So did we. We opened to the public in 2019. So we're all in these parallel journeys, and a lot of organizations are trying to accomplish these things as well. So I just thought that was really interesting.
I love that. And I think one of the things that we see that bridges across these ideas, and where I'm really looking for STEM to go in the future, is that we started out of Boston. I mean, my partner he's a data scientist. He's a research professor. His partner in life is a major female marine scientist, but they are heavy academics, huge research scientists, which is great. It's amazing. And it's really awesome to work with them because they understand how to get funding and disseminate it down. But my focus was, hey, this funding that exists at these major levels, it's not getting to youth. It's not getting to the underserved people. It's really staying at these top tier level places like Boston, New York, California, and Orlando here in Florida. So when we built Scoutwire, and shockingly enough, we actually launched publicly in 2018. So it really was this idea that STEM shouldn't be for the top 10%, because STEM is about solving a problem, right? And you were talking about how you were solving a problem that women, girls, they need to have financial independence, and doing STEM and development can really do that. You had the same story, and when we look at it, a lot of the students that come through here, we have a lot of neurodivergent students and underserved financial students, like these needs that wasn't being met by the traditional STEM training. And I really like the way we can work together for long-term future, for Fab Labs to be really focused on underserved people.
And your comment about the degrees too. I don't have a degree. And we go down these paths because they've been important to us or to our families in some way. That's sort of the backstory, the impetus to sort of create these things. And when you see what we can do, I think it certainly democratizes and equalizes the playing field for people when you can see that the people who are leading these programs don't necessarily have the degrees or have the formal academic backgrounds, but have in practice the practical experiences in life and making and fixing and creating things.
So you see, the main reason why I actually started Codettes Foundation was because I couldn't afford to go to the university, but I had this passion in me to want to learn something more. And I watched just a basic series called Person of Interest that I thought coding was cool, and I found this nonprofit organization, which is Mr. Bohm's organization, called IT Core, and they were teaching kids how to build Lego robots, and that I joined, and I really loved it. So he offered to mentor me, but at the same time, there was a job opening at the office. And before that, I was working in sales, like selling shoes, selling popcorn in the mall, working in the kitchen, working as a receptionist at a hotel. And when he offered me that job, I have to say that I felt like my whole life has changed, because I was wearing a suit, going to work, even though I was doing tech stuff. I was like, wow, I can't believe, because one person saw me and offered to mentor me, I could have changed my life path so drastically. And that actually made me want to, become a mentor to other girls in my community, because I fell in love with technology. But some of the key factors were, because I don't have a degree and I don't have the financing to continue my education, I had to work really hard and I had to develop skills. Because in my country, in Suriname, it's not only about your degree, it's about do you have the skills to work in these companies. Many students attend the university, and I don't want to speak bad about my country because I love Suriname, but sometimes education needs to evolve with the relevant technology, etc. So often students graduate the university and they're not skilled enough to work in companies. So because of Fab Academy and because of being sponsored by these companies, we were able to create this program that allows these kids to come in with no cost and help them develop their skills. And right now, what I'm really proud of is that these kids come through our programs and they get selected to universities in the Netherlands. Unfortunately, our good students have to go because we're not yet there. We're not there yet to facilitate them in our country. The promise was that we would have a central lab which would allow them to work and stay, but for now they have to go. And what makes me happy is that we're able to train them to such a level that they're able to make it in the Netherlands and have a good chance.
Well, I think one of the big things, because it's not just Suriname, it's education in general. I was a teacher 23 years. I've taught at multiple universities, and we're right next door to a major research university. And shockingly enough, we are in fact in a mall. Yeah. It's one of the main reasons that I love working here is that we're in a mall where people might be going to buy shoes and realize that this is here. But what you said about you don't have it in Suriname, so people are leaving. Florida has like a really big problem with that. Drain. We have we call it the brain drain. Our biggest export isn't oranges, isn't agriculture. It is in fact our gray matter. That we do a program here called Bright Futures, where students that have good grades and do volunteer hours, which is one of the things we do a lot here at AMRoC, is helping students get volunteer hours. So they qualify for this major scholarship that pays 75 to 100% of their tuition costs, which is huge, right? But it only counts when you stay in Florida, right? Then we partner with businesses that will come in and do internships. And we have people coming in here to actually train on the machines and start teaching these kids skills, because college isn't the only answer. I mean, it's really not. And education is changing. You're seeing a lot of changes. People just getting certificates, people going to trade school, people just starting their own business, like what she's doing with equity and entrepreneurship here. It's a massive shakeup of education. But one of the things that I hope that your Fab Lab is doing is, because you are doing the virtual things, like we do a lot of virtual things here as well, is that these students, even if they go, they might take a foot into another area, but they still keep their heart in your country, so that what they are doing gives back to that community and grows. And that's what I really like about the Fab Lab organization, is that's the whole idea, is that we are building in one area, but we are basically octopusing out to all the areas. So we're supporting these underserved areas. We just have to better codify the education to make that happen.
And I like what, we brought up the entrepreneurship program. You and Theo were here last night to help out and share some of your story with the entrepreneurs. It's really great. And one of the entrepreneurs we heard from was Ulysses with his Gangs to Riches business model. And he's gotten really good at articulating through the program that we're doing what that business model is, what he's actually trying to achieve. And what he said was really critical to a lot of what we're doing, which was basically meeting youth, particularly where they are, and his take that youth who are doing things that are illegal are actually entrepreneurs, are just on the wrong side of the law, right? And so he's like, you can sell drugs or you can sell shoes, right? You can market for things that are bad. You can steal cars, or you can learn how to make cars and sell them, right? So he hit on that really well. And I think you and Theo both enjoyed hearing from him. But that idea of not telling people that, what you're doing is wrong, you should stop doing that. Coming to people and saying, you have a really unique skill set. You can leverage that, and we can help you learn how to apply that in a healthier, more productive, more lucrative way.
Yes.
Right.
I definitely have to say the workshop yesterday really inspired me. His story was amazing. It just make me realize that, there are so many others that do not have this ability and does not have as much drive as that gentleman, but it brings back to what I believe in. These kids in our training program, or these students, they come from ages 8 all the way to 50, and our job is to be able to identify what they're strong in and what they're not, and mentor them in the right areas. One of the most important thing, I think, is long-term mentorship. An example is I had a student that I mentored when he was 6 years old, teaching him Lego robotics. He took a little break and came back at 16, and he entered into my program again. And we've worked with him and mentored him in winning multiple hackathon and hackmation competitions, and now he's studying to become a pilot. So I'm with him for so long, and he came one day to me like, Miss, it's so funny how we've met. I still have the picture of him like my waist height, and now he's taller than me. So these things give me the motivation to continue doing what we do. Ongoing mentorship is very, very important with these kids to guide them.
I think that's a good thing about what you do here with the Advanced Manufacturing Robotics Center is they also started with robotics. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of things that go on here: entrepreneurship, robotics, making as like just a culture in general. But they started with robotics with their own kids. I started with STEM with my own kid. We were learning 3D printing because somebody told him his engineering school they got a makerspace in their high school. They're like, when you're a junior, if you're the top 15% of your class, you can come in this program. And he came here, he was like, what? Why do I have to wait 8 years? I'm ready now. And you were doing the same thing with robotics. How do you start it young and then build these skills? And what I really love when we're working in here together and why we do so much together is these kids, we kind of give them the tools and they can say, okay, you're going to use these safely and for good. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to kind of stand back like, whoa, that wasn't safe. Sure. Yeah. And that wasn't good. No, course correct. Yeah. And we just keep them in this safety net until they are raised, their frontal lobes are fully developed. And they now become the leaders of the education for the future. They develop it. You were at the thing we did on Thursday over at USF, the Cyber Smart Cities. We just literally picked some stuff off the table and brought it in to the robotics students here and we said, can this work? This is our idea. And now it's this like major program that's launching and growing and impacting. And I think that's what we have to show our students, because if not, they're just spending their time wasting playing video games.
And the fact that they come back, right?
Yeah.
They came back to you, they come back here. We create these safe spaces, and we're talking about how to inspire and get kids, youth more, involved in this kind of stuff in a meaningful way. Like you can sit in classrooms and you can do computer-aided drafting. You can sit in the classroom and you can do basic programming, right? Just like, Java or Python or something like that. Or you can come to a space like this where you can sit around tables like this and you can solder, you can build, you can create, and all the little things we have sitting around here. And they remember that, right? That was fun. They're not being tested, right? That their assessment on what they've learned is, can they successfully complete the build on what they're making, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's a program, an app, a widget.
Yeah, in our country, I reference my country because it's based on my experience, in the universities or in the polytechnic schools, it's very theoretical still. It's often not very practical, and most of our students are forced into one box, and they're told if you're not capable of maybe studying this material, you're not capable of getting to a certain level. Because in our school, you have an A or a B trajectory. So if you're good in math and science, etc., you'll do A, and if you're not, you'll do B, like become an economist or business, etc. But then there's never a time in between where, okay, you say, okay, at this moment I was not good at math and science, but along the line I want to move over. The students never get a chance, so they have to just stick to that path. With our training program, it allows them to just come and try and see if it's for them. And even though they are not able anymore to get into science, they can develop the skills with us and choose later or change their career path, which they often do. and because all students learn in their own way. For example, with the presentation of your kids from the workshop where they presented their robot gripper, I was impressed, I have to say. The things with kids, they're young, and no matter what you give them, they just absorb this knowledge. When your kids were presenting, Brandy, it reminded me of what the adults were doing in the entrepreneurship program. Is basically the same thing, but just on a younger level. So we're all for just giving these kids the resources and the mentorship, and let them just evolve as quickly as possible, and you'll be surprised to what they can make. I mean, a testimony to, I'm sure you guys have amazing kids that are developing wonderful things, but in Suriname, from our group, I have a student that's age 14. He came in at 11, the first boy I had in my program. He is 14 years old, and he's in 2 to 3 startups, and he built his own drone from scratch, and the software and the surveillance system. And we were only able to do that because, one, his mother paid attention that, hey, I want my son to do something more. He's reprogramming my refrigerator. And two, she found us, and we just kept giving him material to work with. And he in himself had a passion and drive and build these amazing things. And I'm sure he'll have a bright future ahead of him. So.
I think that's proof of concept. I mean, coast to coast, across overseas, because everybody reports these things, right? And so the fact that we have these parallel independent experiences, and the theme is the same, right? Resources, mentors, space, support, and security and safety. And doing these things, creating these kinds of spaces, I hope that our shared stories kind of help inspire others to support these spaces, because they do what much more expensive government interventions don't do. And they do what a lot of, we put these in communities where they're not normally accessible, and people can walk to them, take a bus to them, ride a bike to them, have these community centers of empowerment that don't exist, in other ways. But the fact that we have these shared and similar experiences means that these work, right? And so I think that's amazing.
100%. I also think that you're right. Our kids are making some awesome things. I would say legitimately, I think more awesome things are being made in other countries that don't have the tech that we have here. Because what happens, and you see it all the time, you'll see big tech leaders, they're like, I don't let my kid use this. Yeah, I might be making a lot of money off it. I don't let my kid use it. And it's because there's this thing that happens with kids, that they learn the most when they're bored. In America, we have, everything was so easy. Even the coding programs we have they're just answering the same question, like drag this, where your students are like doing actual coding in C, right? My students would be like, what are you talking about? No, it needs to have colorful blocks I can pull, and I need to get some fireworks.
The robotics kids are doing a job.
Oh yeah, you robotics kids are. They're getting there. But I'm talking about what's in like our traditional insurance.
Yeah.
That's why we started the company. It was scouting outliers. Who's doing more with less? Because what I saw, because we were at MIT, we were working with the maker spaces that original Fab Labs, and we saw the big corporations put in $150,000 Fab Labs in Title I schools, and I was like, great, you just put $150,000 equipment in there. Did you put in the training?
Yeah.
Did you put in the curriculum? Did you scaffold it so that an underserved teacher, that anybody can walk in, or did you just train that one teacher, and the second that they're done, they're going to find out, I can actually get a job in tech and make 4 times what you're paying me. They're out, and all the training for that whole space is now gone. And we watched it happen over and over again. Gorgeous, corporate, beautiful, perfect maker spaces be shuttered. Yeah. And the tables alone were like $4,000 tables. And I was like, for $4,000 tables, you could have like 4 3D printers. You could have a laser cutter. You could have a CNC router. And so what I love about AMRoC, and if you look around, if you're really watching the video, you can see the tables are made for the kids.
They're made by the kids.
The tools, the tools are tools that were donated, or like, as unfortunately some education programs shuttered, they donated tools to here. And one of the things that they've done, and you actually mentioned that in your speech, did the same thing, that we got someone gave a broken laser cutter and they were going to throw it away.
Yeah.
They were going to throw it away, and it was going to lead to the increasing problem of e-waste. And they were like, no, we're going to build it. I got here and I was like, that's awesome. It works. That's very cool. We need to make some sustainable money. We're going to make sustainable money if we can buy one that a school can bring into the school system. So let's look and see what is equitable and accessible and works and has a good mission to follow. And I think that's where we start really growing this. Start with what's in your garage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, build from there.
If I can add to that, that's one thing that we hold close to heart. We are really good at making the most of what we have. For example, when we had to do Fab Academy, we were granted a scholarship by the government, gratefully. I was selected, but Mr. Boomsma said we don't have a space to do Fab Academy, which is one of the requirements. So he said he will give half of his house to do Fab Academy. And basically, if you see the picture of it, it's just an open garage with no roof, nothing done. So the Fab Academy started in January, and we had the place ready by May. So during that time, we were working online and moving back and forth from our lab in Suriname with the lab in French Guiana, because the lab in French Guiana wasn't already an established lab. So Mr. Mosman and the team threw a roof on there. We scrapped some tables and we got some half-done stuff, and we started the academy with half-baked things. We would take a little boat over the river to French Guiana with our 3D printers and our machines and do a couple days there and come back. So, and when it's time to mold and cast, because we're in Suriname, the stuff came late, and Fab Academy is very intensive. Every week you need to have X amount of assignments done. So to even think about, you need to have to order stuff. We take 2 months to get our stuff. It was really challenging. But we worked together as a team. We partnered with French Guiana and we got it done. We're still doing that today. For example, if we have a sponsor and they ask us, can you do this? We're like, it does not matter how much funding you can give us. We will adapt our training program to cater for that, because our goal is to educate the kids that cannot afford to do the program. So we're very agile. We teach our kids to adapt as well in our training program to whatever technology too. You have to be quick on your feet, especially in a small country of 700,000 people in Suriname. Another example is higher up the food chain, learning to make most of what you have and adapting is when we build our tech solution in Suriname, because our market is so small, we have to integrate everything in one solution. But we realized that we had a bigger market, like for example in Africa. When I got there, they said, hey, we don't need all of these sensors in one. We just need one of those sensors, and we could impact a million, how many million people, farmers in their country. So I think it's something that makers have, is that we make our things ourselves. We make most of the little that we have, and we do create huge impact. So if the sponsors out there can hear and see and really understand the impact that we're having, I think it would be easier to fund our initiative, because as you mentioned, Ms. Terri, there are other organizations that, in my opinion, does not have as much impact as you do, that get much more funding than organizations.
Well, for sure, it's the ultimate entrepreneurial spirit, right? Yeah. So what all of these are, what you're doing is, they're always funding lots of entrepreneurs, right? But when you look at what entrepreneurship is and what the entrepreneurial mindset is, you are it, right? And IoT Lab is it, and Cadets is it, and because you don't let a challenge like supplies or delays stop you from accomplishing what you want to accomplish. You find a way to get there regardless, and we do the same thing. And it's exciting and it's fun, and it's a really good role model for those coming up behind us and for youth involved in these things. A lot of times we'll start working with kids and they say, well, I can't do that. And then the response is typically, you can't do it, or you just don't know how to do it yet, or you don't know what ways there are to do it, right? And so you have to try to help people think through that. And this is a living example of the entrepreneurial spirit. So I think that's exciting.
And I think, you said like, it didn't even have a roof on it. It didn't have a roof. Well, my company started with a trailer. Like I literally had a Jeep and a trailer, and we put mobile makerspace stuff in there, and I drove around Cape Cod, just school after school. I worked taught all day, and then 2 hours after school. And I was like, dude, I'm exhausted. I can't. 14 hours a day. This is not sustainable. Let me see if I can train people and grow it. When you started like in a library, in a garage, like moving, and then randomly one day it was like, oh, let's physically get a space. And where are we going to find a space, an underused space, and make it happen? And a lot of times people will come in and be like, oh, it's messy. I'm like, it's a Fab Lab. It's going to be messy. And if it's not messy, it's not real.
Not being used.
It's not real. And I do like things pretty organized. I'll admit it.
We all do.
It's pretty and corporate. Let's have some corporate, because I want to have a space for when we have corporate people come in that they can stand, they can take their pictures, and they kind of love that. Like our AMRoC, beautiful mural up front is great for that. The storefront up front. But when you look at each space, every part of this space, except for in the wood shop where it would not physically be safe, is on wheels. Everything is on wheels because we're growing and expanding, because we're working with partners. You can't do it by yourself.
No.
You can't. You cannot do it by yourself. And our hope is that in the not too distant future, that we're going to become such good friends that it's not going to end with these 3 days. You know, we're partnering with them in Massachusetts, in Rhode Island, in Texas, in Georgia, in Florida,
Suriname could be
in California, but everywhere we're working is with underserved, you know, and we always test here. Yeah. They got flights to Suriname. We can go.
Yeah. And that brings us back to, right, how do we collaborate, right?
Yep.
So now we've met, we've had a few days together. You're tasked with creating a collaborative STEM project. You want to tell us a little bit about what you're thinking there and how we can build that?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge which we have right now, if you would ask, is also scaling, because right now it's just Mr. Teo and I from IoT Lab managing the entire lab and all of these training programs and the entrepreneurship programs, etc. So when I got here, and I actually went on the first day with Brandy to the Scoutlier workshop, and we saw her Scoutlier online platform. We bumped each other like, whoa, this is what we need. This is the missing link, you know, because often we are asked if we could deliver our training programs to Guyana or Grenada or Barbados. But my thought is, hey, I want to pilot first in Suriname in the different districts, ensure the quality is good. Because, you know, if you're doing it by yourself, you know 100% will work. But as soon as you hand it all over to second, third person, you're not quite sure. And right now, all of our material is in slides and not packaged yet online. So when we saw Brandy's online platform, we were like, wow, this would really kick us up a notch if we could port all of our training material and maybe go over with her how she organizes. And because I think you're one of the best, Brandy, one of the best STEM teachers I've seen. Wow, military style, the kids listen. I was getting this life. Yeah.
For 20 years. I had a lot of training.
It works. And I do understand why they say you're the best, because you are. And I think if we can port our training programs, especially my programs like Inner Starter and Bootcamp,
absolutely,
we can just scale. We've been recently sponsored Mobile Lab on Wheels by Chevron. And right before I came to the States, we launched the lab, and it was quite a success. So the Mobile Lab on Wheels is a lab that's we're certified to drive at that level. And it has the laser, 3D printer, CNC, the machines, and our kits. So what we can do is get these kids online, train them during like a month, and then in the weekend, we go and bring the machines and the trainers to the districts and educate them. And with this online platform, they can get all the materials wherever they are. They just have to connect online, you know. And it was, you know, because I am busy doing this on my own. I'm not a professional teacher. So I did wish to have that mentorship also on how can we do this. And I feel like that's a great way we could collaborate as well. Another way is the entrepreneurship program which you have, which is more Mr. Boomsma's program. But I see that that's the only way, or one of the best ways we could reach sustainability, because that's one of the biggest challenge as labs, especially I'm speaking from our side, the lab that we have in Suriname. We're all about giving to the community, and at a certain point, we have to make a little transition to, get some income so that we can sustain our lab, because it is our legacy that we leave behind. It is our community that we want to help grow and make changes in our country eventually with education, and we want it to survive. So our goal is to partner with you guys also on the entrepreneurship line. Right now, we are also collaborating with Arizona State University students, where I give them training and they help work on our prototypes in Suriname. And because they're on another level, maybe they have the resources necessary, like the CAD and the market as well. We have our projects, they collaborate with us on our project, and we can produce these products in our lab and then bring it into the tech starter, find the funding and the partners and pilot customers, and potentially bring these products to market.
Yeah.
So it's relatively new, but that's our vision and our goal. And we take a stock in these businesses, and if it should hit a success, we get a revolving fund to sustain our lab.
A tech transfer.
Yeah, and that's really critical. And we've been trying to increase the amount of earned revenue we have at this Fab Lab. And I think that's a critical part for a lot of Fab Labs and maker spaces, right? Mostly for the Fab Labs, because these aren't membership based facilities typically, and being able to increase the earned revenue portion of your budget is really powerful, because it frees you up from a lot of more specific types of funding from other organizations that make it hard to be agile. The other thing that finishing Scout Liar's praises and Brandy's is that the other thing that she drives home a lot, and it's important for all of us, is that data issue. Look at me. Are you proud? Are you proud?
Like data connected.
Yeah. Well,
data or it didn't happen.
Being able to collect those numbers to show who's using what and what's the most useful parts of what we have. The number of people using your space, their ages, all of that stuff really drives home to other people. And even as we're trying to scale what we're doing, we need to be able to show that we're having an impact now, and then extrapolate that to the impact we could have, with more resources and more space and things.
Well, and I think
that's important that Scout Liar does that.
I think that's actually one of the most important things, whether you're using Scout Liar or anything, and we do make Scout Liar free as often as possible, because we get corporate funding to make these programs exist, and we have some federal and state funding. So for as long as we can, we're going to keep it as free as possible. The biggest thing is the only way to really do that is people put stuff in there. It gives away some of their IP, because it's about sharing.
Yeah.
Our goal in the next 6 months is that people that put materials in there can actually hide them away. They can share what they want to share, but still keep their IP for themselves, so people aren't undercutting them. Because what I'm finding to be true a lot is that someone sees something someone else is doing, they do a poor man's version of that. It's not nearly as good. They grab some terrible videos from the internet and they poke it together. And like you said, because they're an expert, they can do it. They're like, this is enough. We're done. Give me my big check. I'm going to walk out the door. And really all they've done is line their own pockets. But with Scout Liar, you grab the data. You can see when someone clicked in, how much materials they did in real time. Did they go through the whole thing? The data all the way, and it's there at your fingertips. And that is transformational data. It's not just the numbers of did they walk in the door, because schools have tracked that for decades. We had 1,400 students. They walked in the door, but the data is showing that they are not walking out the door with the education and the experiences that they need to be makers of the solutions to all the problems we have created for the last, millennia. But now we have these tools that make it happen. The internet is so powerful that we can be bringing stuff from all over the world. The problem is we have to learn to make stuff locally. You mentioned that one of Suriname's biggest problems, and it's actually our problem as well, is that, especially during COVID, so much stuff was manufactured overseas, and then we couldn't do anything because nothing was shipped here. And there's a big focus on teaching students how to design the chips themselves. How you don't have to have this very expensive integrated circuit that has 17 sensors, because technically you only need that one sensor, but another company made the other 16 sensors. How are they going to use those 16 sensors to steal your IP, do all the bad things that happen? What if you just streamlined it? What if you made the sensor that does the one thing you really need? Keep it simple, silly. make it happen.
To add on what Brandy was mentioning about the integrated circuits, I think the power of our labs is being able to make anything we want. Fab Academy stands for Make Anything. It's a maker program. And one of the things that we focus on in the IoT lab, which is Internet of Things lab, is designing and manufacturing your own printed circuit boards. So by the end of our program, we teach our kids to build these Internet of Things solutions. And as Brandy mentions, these controllers that come in, often they're too bulky and they're not customized to our use cases. So they cost a lot of money, especially for Suriname. So Mr. Boomsma has invested in the machines necessary to pick and place these components. And in our training program, we teach the students to design their own printed circuit boards. So now our goal is to have them design and manufacture about 100 of these printed circuit boards, and we can make our own solutions in Suriname. One of the biggest eye-opener was during the pandemic, where Suriname was so dependent on China for all of their resources. If the promise was kept where we would have had that centralized lab, we would have the skilled students present to be able to design and produce their own products to, give to the community or provide the community instead of us being completely dependent on the China for our products. So I think that's somewhere where we definitely could partner up and share knowledge and strengthen our community with our labs.
Right, and one of our partners that we work with here is Larshay Johnson, who runs a company called Bits for Bots. And she had actually been a student at USF when we met her when we first opened the Fab Lab here. She was a volunteer at AMRoC, and she was prototyping and testing a lot of the same thing you're talking about. Like she was making her own boards and her own little STEM kits. And now she's finished her program at USF. Actually, she's back at USF getting her master's now, but she's an engineer at Northrop Grumman. And she still has her company, Bits for Bots, and she makes the kits. And Brandy could speak to some of the different ways that she's used them, but she basically designs her own boards and her own platforms for doing different things. But being able to source locally like that and to work with people who you know or who are from the area does uplift an area, right? And even when we did the same thing during COVID, we weren't doing boards, we were doing PPE and things like that. But we weren't having to purchase these things. We were creating everything here locally. And we had actually created a distributed volunteer brigade of 3D printers in the area. Just people who had 3D printers at home were 3D printing the shields, and in partnership with another organization, we were able to do like 40,000 shields, over the year when there was nothing else to do. But it was all done locally, right? And that's amazing. And if you want to talk more to what Bits for Bots is really cool.
Yeah. So one of the things we do is we're really working on getting students to understand what an integrated circuit is. And we purposely try not to use any Chinese designed and manufactured. I mean, unfortunately, they're all manufactured there. But one of the ones we use is the microbit from the BBC. I don't know if you've ever played with these, but they're awesome because they're inexpensive on the most part, and they teach all of the circuits, right? All the circuits are in there, and then you create a breakout board where you just pop it in, and now it becomes something else, something more. Now we understand how the microbit and the controller system works, and then we can plug it into a car, the exact same thing. And it's funny, we had students that, I don't know if you can see in this camera over here in the background, but this giant robot. We had students that built that. And when he came on the first day, he was looking at the robot in your hand. It's a tiny little robot. And he literally rolled his eyes. He's like, this is so dumb. I can build a giant robot all myself. I don't need this. This is going to be a waste of my time. And on Wednesday, I walked in and his head was on the table. And I was like, what? He's like, this is the hardest thing I think I've ever done. And I'm like, why? And he was like, I thought I knew it. Mm-hmm. I thought I knew it. And I was like, you don't. You never know it. And if you think you know it, you're dead. You're done. Because you've got to be thinking. You always are learning. And so what we're hoping to do with the Fab Lab, the Fab Lab Academy, people out of MIT that we work with, people here at USF, Arizona State University, all the groups that are pushing, all these groups that are pushing, we can do more, is to reach these underserved places, like here at AMRoC, right next to USF, which you would think is going to be this like amazing, financially secure place. It's not. It's a poverty-stricken area. Suriname, same ideas. But how can we, by teaching people, starting at the toy level, take apart a toy, make something new with it. Now, what you just learned, how are you going to make it solve a problem?
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I hope the collaborations from Fab Labs start becoming, because we don't look at it as this extra. We actually look at it as a foundation.
Yeah.
It starts the blocks. And so I'm really excited about getting to work with you.
Building these networks is really exciting. So we're really glad you come here and chose us, and we're learning an enormous amount from you as well.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to keep scaling this and growing it.
I'm super excited as well. From the moment I read about what AMRoC's mission and vision was. I felt as if it aligned with us, and now I'm here, and I'm definitely sure it does. And I'm super excited to work together and do some amazing things, because we are, as you mentioned, sisters. We could become sister labs.
Yeah.
And let's do this.
Good. Yep. Awesome. And FabX, if you're looking for a place, right here.
Thank you, Miss Terri and Brandy, and especially AMRoC. And special thanks to Chevron FAB STEM Fellowship for giving me this opportunity, and great things ahead.
Filmed and produced by Plugkids Productions on location at AMRoC Fab Lab in Tampa, Florida.
The Chevron FAB STEM Fellowship is a one-year discovery program for outstanding educators to learn about, create, and promote innovative and inclusive programs that teach STEM using digital fabrication and engage new and underrepresented student populations in STEM education and careers. The program is inspired by Chevron's social investment strategy and the global Fab Lab network, both of which foster innovation, learning, and invention. Fab Labs, with their suite of digital fabrication tools and prototyping machines, including laser cutters, 3D printers, vinyl cutters, and milling machines, are inspiring young people across the world to learn about science, technology, engineering, and math STEM. These are safe and accessible places to play, create, learn, mentor, and invent. The fellowship awards a stipend of $10,000 to each selected educator to use toward creating and disseminating new, inclusive practices in STEM education and hands-on impactful making. The fellows will visit a few Fab Labs of their choice anywhere in the world to learn, to reflect, to co-create new curriculum and disseminate new practices. Their work will be published in podcasts, online blogs, and through talks and presentations at conferences and educational events over the coming year. For more information about this podcast series and the Chevron FAB STEM Fellowship Program, please reach out to us at cvxfabstem@fabfoundation.org.